regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. We've got a busy show for you. We've got Holly Sullivan coming up from Connecticut Citizens Defense League. We're going to be talking about a challenge to Connecticut's ban on so-called assault weapons that has now reached the Supreme Court. Talk about Connecticut Attorney General William Tong targeting Ruger. We also have a conversation with my friend Allison Nichols, who I met at the NRA annual meeting in Atlanta, Georgia earlier this year. Allison is a country singer, and her latest single is my favorite country song of all time. So I hope you will indulge me. We're not talking Second Amendment stuff, but I did want to give a shout out to Allison for recording, again, my favorite country song of all time. Not because of me, but it's just an added bonus. Anyway, so we've got that for you. We've got today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, our Armed Citizen report. Did I say that? Recidivist report? Yeah. Good deed of the day, Armed Citizen, Recidivist, all of those things. A very busy show, as I said. So let's get things started with our conversation with Holly Sullivan up there in the nutmeg state of Connecticut, talking about the challenge to the state's ban on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms, as well as the Connecticut Attorney General going after a popular semi-automatic pistol. Take a look and a listen. Holly, thanks so much for coming on the program. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for having me, Cam.
Absolutely. Busy times in Connecticut. So let's talk about the good news, at least goodish news first here. Challenge to Connecticut's ban on so-called assault weapons. This brought by Second Amendment Foundation and the Connecticut Citizens Defense League. This case has now reached the Supreme Court, right?
Yes, it has. The request for injunctive relief, yes.
Okay. That was where I was going to go here. So this case is still technically ongoing, right? We have not had a trial on the merits, even though this case has been going on for 3 years now? Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a few years, for sure.
That's amazing. Boy, the wheels of justice grind slowly.
They certainly do. And I think that's important for folks to understand across the board, no matter where you are, whatever case you're involved in, these things are very, very slow.
Yeah. So district court judge and the Second Circuit Court of Appeals both denied injunctive relief. But for really weird, using a really odd rationale, right? As I understand it, and as the cert petition lays out, under I hate to call it logic, but under the argument that the courts deployed, essentially any firearm except maybe handguns would be unprotected by the Second Amendment, right? The right to keep arms would apply only to those handguns that the Supreme Court has already said are protected.
They really leave it up to the legislature to decide, which is totally contrary to the founding of the balance of power. It's totally a miss.
Yeah, and they also had this test that arms that are not in common use for active self-defense are not protected by the Second Amendment, even though the Supreme Court has said that the Second Amendment protects lawful activity with firearms, including but not limited to self-defense, right? So under this rationale, your bolt-action deer rifle could be banned, right? But maybe your home defense shotgun would be okay. But anything that's used for hunting, recreational shooting, collecting, none of those arms would be protected by the Second Amendment.
100%. It's totally wild. And that's exactly why we really have no alternative but to go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, guys, you got to figure this out. Because there is no way that this was the intention that our forefathers had for us. There's no way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've heard from Justice Kavanaugh earlier this year where they denied Snopes that the court likely to take up this issue in a term or two. He said, well, all right, we're in that next term. Right. And this would be a vehicle, right? I realize, again, this is a request for injunctive relief. The Supreme Court doesn't ordinarily want to get into that, but they already have done so once this term, right? With Wolford versus Lopez. That's the case dealing with Hawaii's vampire rule.
Yep.
That has not been fully decided on the merits, and yet the Supreme Court agreed to take that case.
Yeah, it's definitely happened. It doesn't happen often, but really, when you're put into a position like this, I mean, what alternative do you have if you're fighting for the people? So, we're really looking for some relief here. And it is possible, there's other ways that this can be critically important. They could be looking at this case and weighing it with a factor of other cases and say, hey, combined, we really need to look at this because here's all of these various issues that are happening around the country. And it's really time that we address it because obviously we have massive conflicts here. Combined, there's a number of vehicles, and ours is one very important one, and one in which the Second Circuit, totally ignores precedent that's already been set by the Supreme Court. And ultimately, the people need that relief because we're almost living in different countries when it comes to some of our constitutional rights, and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. And you're right. There are a lot of vehicles just this term. I think there's Viramontes versus Cook County, which is a challenge to Cook County's ban on so-called assault weapons. I think there's Nagar versus Lamont, which is another challenge to Connecticut's gun and magazine ban. You got the Duncan case out of California dealing with magazine bans. Gators Custom Guns dealing with magazine bans in Washington State. And then, we just heard oral arguments in the Third Circuit over New Jersey's ban on so-called assault weapons. I think there's a lot of optimism that the Third Circuit is actually going to rule that ban unconstitutional, which would create that circuit court split that the court likes to see. I feel pretty good that one or more of these cases, is going to get accepted. If not this term, it may be the cases out of New Jersey, which would be probably next term by the time they get up there. Maybe this term, depending on when the Third Circuit issues its decision. But you're right; it is like we're living in two different countries. And I got to tell you, Holly. I mean, I live in New Jersey, Virginia, which is about to become like New Jersey and Connecticut in terms of its gun laws, thanks to our elections. And the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which holds sway over Virginia, has already said that bans on so-called assault weapons, like those banned by the state of Maryland. It's okay because AR-15s are like machine guns, right? It's not the same argument that we've heard in the Second Circuit, but it's just as bad. It's just as dumb, quite frankly. So you're right. The Supreme Court does need to step in, hopefully sooner rather than later, because, I mean, not only do we have this, system where in 10, 11 states now, the most popular rifle in the country you can't own.
Yeah.
But the arguments that are being deployed in defense of those bans are so contrary to what the Supreme Court has said in cases like Heller, McDonald, and Bruin.
Yep, absolutely. And even Caetano, so there was a lot of discussion in oral argument about dangerous and unusual, and they've construed this unusually dangerous. That is not what they said. And you cannot, and I think that what's really important, and I hope this is a reason why the Supremes might be interested in this, is it completely undermines our justice system if the lower courts are misinterpreting the precedent that has come before. And I think that has to be corrected.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And and the sad thing is, I think this is an intentional misinterpretation, right? I don't think this is by accident. I don't think this is just, whoops, we misread that. I mean, they are doing this by design, right? And really flouting what the Supreme Court has had to say. Again, turning dangerous and unusual into unusually dangerous, whatever that means. And as the cert petition points out, it's essentially a meaningless term, right? That empowers the legislature to decide any arm is unusually dangerous and therefore can be banned.
Right. Welcome to Great Britain for all we want, right? It could be a knife. It could be what is it? And I think it's really important that they look at that because, as much as we may disagree with any judge's position, these are not stupid people. These are very bright people that have gotten where they are because they are very intelligent people. I don't think that they we misread it. No, they've read it and they understand.
Yeah, which brings us to our next topic of conversation, because I guess it is possible that we could see the Connecticut legislature decide that Glocks are unusually dangerous, that Ruger's RXM pistol is unusually dangerous. Because they can argue, well, they can be illegally modified and converted into machine guns. We saw this letter from Everytown Law go out to Ruger last week, talking about the design of the RXM pistol, how it is fully compatible with Glock Gen 3 parts, Every town law demanding that Ruger take this gun off the shelves immediately because of its supposed convertibility to full auto. And they CC'd Connecticut Attorney General William Tong in their letter. And like a good lapdog, the Attorney General sent his own letter to Ruger this week, basically warning them lawsuits are coming if you don't change the design, if you don't remove this gun from the market. Talk about William Tong for those of us who are fairly unfamiliar with your Attorney General.
Yeah, so Attorney Tong used to, our Attorney General William Tong used to serve in the legislature, and he was one of the most emphatic anti-gun legislators up there, particularly in his service in the Judiciary Committee. So this has been a long time pet project of him. A lot of the folks that have worked to get him elected in his various seats are members of the anti-gun organizations here in Connecticut, of which there are several. And, I think we know that they're pretty well funded and fueled machine. I think this is no surprise to us here in Connecticut because this is a gentleman who has long been fighting against the Second Amendment right from his earliest days on. This has been an ongoing battle for us for many years. This is not new.
One of the laws that he cited in his letter to Ruger was the Connecticut Firearms Industry Responsibility Act, which he says permits the state to bring civil enforcement actions against gun manufacturers, distributors, marketers, and retailers who fail to implement reasonable controls to prevent the sale of firearms to straw purchasers, firearms traffickers, individuals prohibited from possessing firearms under a state or federal law, or individuals the firearm industry member has reasonable cause to believe intends to use it for a crime or to cause harm to themselves or others. And he says that the statute specifically requires the industry to enact reasonable controls to prevent the sale or distribution of a firearm product designed in a manner that is reasonably foreseeable to promote conversion of a legal firearm into an illegal firearm. And, I'm not an attorney, Holly, but as I'm reading this, I'm like, well, that's so vague that you could argue that any long gun that's sold in the state of Connecticut could fall under this law because, you can saw off that barrel pretty easily. Right. And turn that into a short barrel rifle, a short barreled shotgun. And I know that we've talked about this bill before as it was making its way through the legislature, but this is one of those pieces of legislation that simply is designed to make it easier to sue gun makers out of existence.
Yeah, and I don't think that was, I think that there is language in there that was intended to protect them. But at the end of the day, we do not have the makeup in the legislature to be able to stop these bills when they come through. And this is where your advocacy organizations, are really important in saying, guys, we have to flip these seats. So if you come in there and your makeup is the vast majority are on one side and they are going to vote that way, you cannot. I'm going to really frankly honest with you, to stop a bill like this that has been replicated around the country, because this isn't like accidental that it happened in Connecticut, right? This was a coordinated effort, and it was like, okay, this is the session. This is going to be the year that this happens, and you're getting wiped out at the polls when your legislators are getting elected and you have such a small minority up there. They're not going to be able to stop these bills. And that's why it is so important that you're getting involved in your elections, that you're flipping seats, because if you're pro 2A folks up there do not have enough colleagues that are going to vote with them, there is zero possibility that they're going to be able to stop a bill like this. It's just not, it's not even a realistic expectation.
Yeah. No, you're right, unfortunately. And again, I'm about to see that firsthand in Virginia, unfortunately. With Democrats gaining a supermajority in the House of Delegates, they're already filing the gun control bills. And we're going to turn into South Connecticut here in just a matter of months, unfortunately. So, I am encouraging folks to get involved at the local level in Virginia, whether it's the Virginia Citizens Defense League, the Virginia Shooting Sports Association. But, if you're a Connecticut gun owner, CCDL, you guys, honestly, you punch way above your weight. You do incredible work there under some really difficult circumstances. And I know that you've already got a strong community of members, but I'm sure that there are Connecticut gun owners out there who have not yet joined CCDL who need to belong, honestly, because there is strength in numbers.
There definitely is. And and we're not even in the position anymore. Back in the day, it used to be like, wow, we really wiped them out with the number of testimonies that we got in. Like, it used to be that we only had so many on our side and they had double on their side. Well, now we've totally flipped that, right? Now we're getting 10 times, 12 times the number of testimonies in. But man, I'll tell you, if you're not getting involved in the elections and you're not helping people get elected, just being being a member is fantastic, but you have to be an active member, like a really active member. Like when we put out that action alert, the testimonies do matter. I'm not saying that they don't matter, but it needs to be I'm using that as an example of how much that we've grown. Even with doing all of those things, we still have to do better. A lot of the time people think maybe they are a member because they joined the Facebook group. Like you need to be, if you go on our website, ccdl.us/join, I'll frankly ask you, like, we really haven't put this ask out in the past. Become a tiered member, $25 a year. For $25 a year, that helps us fight cases going to the Supreme Court. These things are massively, massively expensive. And it's really hard to explain to folks that like these cases do take years to get through. And there are many attorneys that look at them. We're doing all of these things plus with the work in the legislature. And CCDL, unlike a lot of other organizations, we are all volunteers. We do not have a single paid staff member. So everybody does this because it's a labor of love. So please, for the folks that are in Connecticut, you don't even have to be in Connecticut. If you're in New England, if you're in Virginia, if you're in California, I don't care if you're in England and you're like, oh man, they took my guns. If you're in Australia, man, they took our guns. If you're in Canada, become a CCDL member, because like, what if we did actually really start moving the needle together, because the numbers are on our side. Most Americans are like us. At the end of the day, it's indisputable. I don't believe for a second, because I live amongst these like very left folks here. And this is not the majority of America. I guarantee you. But we have become so quiet and we don't want to push too hard. Just leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. But the reality is they don't leave us alone. And this is a perfect example of it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Holly, again, thank you for everything you're doing there in the state of Connecticut and around the country as part of the one of my fellow board members for the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. It has been too long since we had the opportunity to talk with you, but I'm really glad we could get you on the show today.
Thanks, Cam. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll do this again very soon. Holly Sullivan joined us from the Connecticut Citizens Defense League here on Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My thanks to Holly for joining us on the program today. Looking forward to having her back again here very soon. Right now, before we get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, let's talk about this for just a second. From city streets to mountain trails, your gear should go wherever life takes you. And that's why at Modern Rugged Leather, every bag is handcrafted from premium, responsibly sourced leather. It's designed to look sharp, last long, and tell a story of its own. Each stitch, each buckle, each strap reflects timeless craftsmanship and is backed by a lifetime warranty, because quality shouldn't quit when the adventure begins. This is my own laptop bag from Modern Rugged. I got to tell you, I love it. It is, first of all, it is substantial. It's heavy duty, right? But it's fantastic. You can see it's got the straps up front here. Inside, more pockets than I even know what to do with. I mean, you've got the laptop sleeve and this zips closed, but you also got an interior compartment in here. You got a place for your pens and pencils and your notebooks. I mean, I tend to stuff my bags. You got another compartment back here in the back. Great strap as well. I tend to stuff my bags full. I'm going to actually have to think about what I can put in this, because this can hold so much stuff. Whether it's the border with the back roads, Modern Rugged Leather helps you carry confidence every step of the way. Modern Rugged Leather, modern style, timeless durability, backed for life. Life takes you places. Make sure your gear keeps up. Shop the full collection and find yours today at modernrugged.com. Again, that is modernrugged.com. All right, now let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. I'm going to put my Modern Rugged Leather satchel down here. There we go. Without trying to remove my IFB and my earpiece and all that. All right, we're good to go. All right, today we will start with our recidivist report out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Headline: La Crosse man linked to teen shooting death, arrested again on drug charges. Yeah, and this man wasn't just linked to a teen shooting death. He was originally charged with intentional homicide. 21-year-old Sage Hick saw those charges dropped because prosecutors had difficulty getting witnesses to cooperate. So instead, Hick pled guilty to intimidating a witness and illegally possessing a firearm. He was sentenced in December of 2023 to 6 years in prison. It's been less than 2 years, and Mr. Hick is already out. So he served less than a third of that 6-year sentence, which again was originally a first-degree intentional homicide charge for the death of 15-year-old Storm Vondrashek. Well, this past weekend, Hick, I don't know how long he's been out, but he's on probation. It's about 2:30 Sunday morning. Police in La Crosse got a call about a fight. They show up. 2 guys run off into the darkness. They go after him. One of them they stop is Mr. Hick. He denied being a part of any fight. He appeared to have been drinking, which did violate his probation conditions. During a search of Mr. Hick's person, officers allegedly found 13 small bags of white powder hidden in a fanny pack that Hick wore under his jacket. Bags contained a total of 10.5 grams of cocaine. So now he is charged with possession with intent to deliver cocaine, which is a felony in Wisconsin. Could result in up to 15 years in prison. And because he does have a previous felony conviction, he could also be charged as a habitual offender. Whether or not that happens, got no idea. I mean, again, this deal that he received from prosecutors the first time around, 6 years in prison, does less than 2. I mean, that's just dumbfounding to me. So this 15-year potential sentence, I mean, as far as I know, it could be dropped down to 15 days. But we will keep our eyes, if we can, on Mr. Hick's latest run-in with the law, and hopefully this time justice will be served. Today's Armed Citizen story from Los Angeles. You know, today is Veterans Day. I didn't intend for this to be a Veterans Day specific Armed Citizen story, but I'm kind of glad that I'm able to talk about it. I hate that it happened to this veteran, 79-year-old man who ended up having to defend himself, his wife, and a neighbor against a naked, violent intruder. The naked intruder is getting the headlines. It wasn't just that the guy was butt naked. The guy was super violent to the point that he broke the legs of the armed citizen in question, a 79-year-old man named George Karkok, who was a veteran of the Vietnam War. It was last Friday, just before 7 a.m. This guy's walking down the street in Karkok's neighborhood, again, bare-ass naked, mumbling to himself, swinging a sign around. Karkok says that he had called 911 because he saw the guy and was a little concerned about what was going on. And then after he calls 911, he says the guy runs into his neighbor's apartment, and she starts screaming, a sound that he described as just horrendous. So when his neighbor starts screaming for help, Karkok grabs his gun. The woman is able to escape outside, but the intruder's, still coming after her. So George Karkok goes outside, tries to de-escalate the situation. Instead, this guy picks Karkok up, basically body slams him to the ground, breaking both of his legs, and then jumps on him. So Karkok's there on the ground. His wife, who has Parkinson's, is nearby. His son's there. Neighbor's there. He says he was able to maneuver himself just enough to get his gun. He said, I pressed the gun against him and I fired. I fired 3 times. In the last shot, he said, I made sure I was going to kill him. And at that point, you are fighting for your life, and you shoot to stop the threat. And that is what Mr. Karkok did. When first responders got to the scene, this individual had passed away. Police believe he may have been under the influence or suffering from a mental health emergency. Karkok says he did everything that he could, again, to try to de-escalate the situation, but ultimately had to act to protect himself and his family. His son says that even though his dad is a veteran, has benefits, medical bills are starting to pile up. Family has started a GoFundMe account. LAPD officers who arrived on the scene last Friday morning, they're supposed to visit Mr. Karkok in the hospital today to thank him for his military service and his quick action. If you want to help out to George Karkok with his medical bills, you can go to GoFundMe.com. Look for Support for Attack Victims Medical Recovery. They are hoping to raise about $100,000. So far, they've raised about $14,000. But every penny helps. And Taras Karkak, George's son, is the one who is putting this fundraiser together. I hope that they're successful. I hope that George Karkak is well on the road to recovery. And I wish him and his family nothing but the best. Now, speaking of good deeds, because that certainly was a good deed that George Karkak performed, trying to, again, stop his neighbor from being attacked. Today's story, our good deed of the day, comes from Independence, Missouri, where a classroom of third graders, praised by the local fire department for spotting a house fire and then helping to save a dog by alerting their teacher to the blaze. The students in question attend Thomas Hart Benton Elementary School in Independence, Missouri. It was last Thursday during reading class. Shaylin said she looked out the window and saw a house on fire. Her classmate Emmett quickly alerted their teacher, Addison Hudson, who immediately called 911. She said there was smoke coming out everywhere. She said, actually, as they were showing me, the front window blew out. So she said, I picked up my phone, called 911. Firefighters got to the scene within just a couple of minutes. They were able to rescue a dog from inside the home. They had to give the pet oxygen to revive it. Hudson says the dog was kind of lethargic at first, and then at the end, wagging his tail, super happy. She said it was a really cool moment for the kiddos who were all, faces against the glass watching to see what's going on. Could have been a traumatic moment for the kiddos, but I'm glad the story had a happy ending. Emmett said you even got to see the firefighters feed the dog some peanut butter. So there you go. Firefighters also later visited the school to thank the kids, show off their equipment, and to encourage kids not to be afraid of going to firefighters in a case of emergency. Principal Montel Evans said it's truly about humanity, right? What it means to step up and do something to help out your fellow neighbor. Absolutely right. Thankfully, nobody was home at the time of that blaze. There was only the dog inside. And again, the dog made it out safe and sound. Thanks in large part to Shaylin and Emmett and Addison Hudson and her other students there at Thomas Hart Benton Elementary in Independence, Missouri. So we thank you all for your very good deed. Now, ordinarily, this would be the time where we end the show. But as I mentioned at the beginning of today's program, I had the opportunity yesterday to spend a couple minutes with my friend Allison Nichols. Met Allison for the first time at the NRA annual meeting back in Atlanta earlier this year. Great kid, just starting out her career in country music. And as I mentioned, her new single is my favorite country song of all time. So when I found out that she was covering my favorite country song of all time, I decided, we talk Second Amendment issues on this program, but I decided to make the executive decision to have her on and talk about this just for a couple minutes. So take a look and a listen to my conversation with Allison Nichols. Allison, it's so good to see you again. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Cam. It's really good to hear from you again.
Well, listen, we had such a great conversation in Atlanta at the NRA annual meeting. And then when I found out that your new single is my all-time favorite country song, I had to have you back on here to talk about it, because I know we talked about John Deere Green, because you mentioned that your cousin is Joe Diffie. So yeah. I got to ask, what made you decide that you wanted this to be your new single?
Well, I grew up knowing that, I had older people like my dad and my grandma always telling me, like, Joe Diffie is your cousin. We went to these family reunions, and I just thought he was like such a larger than life figure. Like, he was someone I really looked up to, because I always wanted to do music. I learned so much about country music in Arkansas when we did these family reunions. And, the Diffies were there too, and they would tell me stories. And I just wanted to be him so bad one day. And so he was someone I really looked up to. And this song has such a great story. It's my favorite one of his. I just love the timeless story that, the writer Dennis Lindy, I don't know if you know about him, but he's an incredible songwriter. He wrote Goodbye Earl and some other huge hits. And I just love his storytelling. So just that combo of him, my cousin Joe, and I love 90s country. So that's a big reason why I'm really honored to actually put this out.
It's a great
family tradition.
It's a great version. And I know that Joe Diffie would be proud to see this legacy continue. I have to ask, though, because I've listened and I can't remember. Did you update the song at all? Because, again, this is back in the 90s when it came out, right? So they were farm kids growing up in Dixie in the 60s. Are they Are they still growing up in the 60s, or are they growing up in the 80s or 90s these days?
I think it's they could, because I was just at the FFA convention and there was like all these kids, that grew up listening to that song. So, and they relate to that song because they're all farm kids too. So I feel like it's seeing them. I didn't really know if like high school kids would really remember the song as much, but they were singing along with me. I was playing at the John Deere booth. So there's all these, it was really interesting to see. So I feel like it's a timeless. Yeah, the lyrics are the 60s, but I think it's a timeless story.
I'm kind of glad you kept them the way they are. But it is a timeless story, And I got to tell you, you don't have to be a country kid to have grown up on that song.
Right.
I think the first time I heard it, I was living in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I don't know where in Arkansas your family reunions were, but I lived in Fort Smith for a couple of years. And I think I was working overnight at a Kmart stocking shelves. And I wasn't even a big country fan. Like, I was an alternative music guy, right? Like, I liked REM and all the 90s alternative bands, but the manager loved country music. So we listened to country music from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And that song was in heavy rotation. And so it brings back a lot of memories about that time period of my life. But immediately I loved that song. And I realized, oh man, I got to open my horizons a little bit. Like, I got to break out of my comfort zone, because there's a lot of good music out there that I haven't been exposed to, because that I'm not exposing myself to. So that song was actually kind of my entry point into country music. I just, I thought, I'm not going to name check any names of any bands that I didn't like, but but Joe Diffie and John Deere Green was the song that really made me realize there is a whole world of music out there to appreciate.
Well, that's awesome. It's great to hear that story, because I do feel that way about him and his music. And I'd like to do that with my music, like show people different music that they've never heard before and bring people into country music. Sorry, this noise keeps coming up. I think
that's all right. So what are your plans now? You've got the single out. We're gonna have a chance to see you live anywhere?
Well, I just signed with William Morris, WME. And so I'm really hoping. That's like a booking agency. So I'm really hoping that there's talk of things happening in the next year. So.
Okay. But if we follow you on social media, we're going to get a steady dose of your music, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Going to get a lot. I'm planning on putting out my original stuff after this. So this is kind of my intro. And then I'll be, talking in my own voice.
Well, I'm excited to hear what comes next. But again, I got to say, you killed this version of John Deere Green. And this is available where? Where can folks listen to it?
So people can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, literally wherever. They can buy it on iTunes if that's what they like to do.
Excellent. All right. We can buy it too, right?
Yes, you can buy it.
Okay, that's important, because streaming gives you some pennies, but buying it is always better. That way you get the permanent copy too. So
yeah, support artists and go on iTunes and buy them.
Absolutely. Especially artists like yourself, Allison. Listen, again, I thank you so much for spending a couple minutes with us today. Congratulations. It is a great song, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next in your career.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll talk again very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. See you soon.
My thanks to Alice for joining us on the program. And hopefully, I don't know how anybody could not like John Deere Green, but and I got to say, I tried to do a good job of that at karaoke a couple weeks ago. Last time I was out there, I kind of botched it. I was a little upset with myself, but Allison nailed it. So I'm going to let her do the singing for John Deere Green. I'm just going to keep listening. Anyway, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. And I want to thank you, as always, for being a part of today's program. I would encourage you, check out BearingArms.com throughout the day today. We're keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. If you like what you see, you can also become a VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum member. Use the promo code POTUS47. I think we've still got our great deal going on right now where you get 74% off your VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum membership. But that will not last long. Now that the Schumer shutdown is almost over, so you better take advantage while you can. On tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking with New York Second Amendment attorney Amy Bellantoni. Get the latest on some of her lawsuits involving New York State and New York City gun control laws. But I hope you have a great rest of your 2A Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.